What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm here to bring you the Legend of Korra Season 1 finale review. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's finally here. Legend of Korra Season 1 finale review of Episode 11 entitled Skeletons in the Closet and Episode 12 entitled Endgame. First, before I get into this review, let me say, thank you to everybody who participated in the blog TV and made it successful. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who came in and chatted and watched me and asked me questions. And thank you for a really good experience because that was my first time doing a blog TV. Not sure if I'll be doing any more of those anytime in the near future. So very, very big thank you to the people who stuck around, even though there were some technical difficulties there at the beginning. Just like to give you a very, very, very genuine thank you. My thoughts on this season finale: Wak Sauce. Wak Sauce. Straight Wak Sauce. Now, some of you may not be up on the slang. Wak Sauce means bad. Real bad. Like, if I had more than 2 thumbs to give it down, it would get more than 2 thumbs down. Wak Sauce. I'm going to try and be quick with this as much as I can because this was a 2-part season finale and my videos are already long, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So let me jump right into it. First, you can tell this was made for children. And not just children, but children. This is the type of stuff you'll see when you want kids to say, wow, this looks really cool. But when an older viewer sees it, they'll say, what the hell is this? What is this? Wak Sauce. And to me, from a marketing standpoint, that's just a bad idea. Why? Because they should have gone for more demographic balance. They should have targeted Legend of Korra towards a larger cross section, especially considering the fact that a lot of the people who watch Legend of Korra were there when the original Last Airbender series came out, which was 4 years ago. It ended, I believe, which means that if you were 14 when that series went off, you're now 18. So the fact that they geared this towards children, was to me a real slap in the face to all the older viewers. Just a real slap in the face. And I'm going to take you through what I think are the most significant, ridiculous plot devices in this season finale. I mean, just absolute. There's no other word to describe it. Wak Sauce. I'm going to take you point by point, and I've got about 3 here, 3 or 4 maybe, of just the ridiculous plot devices in this season finale. First, we learned that Aman was Tarlok's brother. Aman was Tarlok's brother. Now you're saying to yourself, how? How did this happen? And also, I'm not going to give you a summary. If you want to know what happened in the episode, you can go watch it yourself. I have too much analysis to give you for this review. So you're asking yourself, how? Well, apparently, after Aang took away Yakon's bending, sent him to prison, Yakon escaped from prison. Okay, he was a mafia boss. Maybe he has some connections. But then it gets even weirder. Apparently, Yakon had facial reconstructive surgery. Really? Facial reconstructive surgery to hide his identity. Apparently, after he has this surgery, he makes his way to the Northern Border Tribe, and where he marries some woman, and he has 2 children. One was Tarlok, one was apparently Aman, or what was his name? Nowataka. That was his name, Nowataka. And I know a lot of you had been sort of confused because you were like, wait a minute. The times weren't adding up when Yakon was put into prison and the time he had Tarlok. Something's off. A lot of you mentioned that. But apparently this is what happened. And that was just downright ridiculous. The man escapes from prison, has facial reconstructive surgery, makes it to the Northern Water Tribe, marries some random chick, and has 2 kids. How is that not a ridiculous plot device? That's just a ridiculous backstory. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't know specifically what the technology in the Avatar world is like, because the technology in the Avatar world is just wildly inconsistent. There are varying degrees of technological development throughout the Avatar world. On one hand, you'll have things like advanced mecha and robotics, which is something that we don't even have in this world. And on the other hand, they'll have things like World War II airplanes, when our aero technology is way past that. But the idea that these people can develop facial reconstructive surgery, I mean, it's almost laughable. Facial reconstructive surgery in the Avatar world? That is ridiculously contrived. Ridiculously contrived. So, what are the implications of the fact that Aman is Tarlok's brother? One of the obvious implications is that he's a waterbender, and not just a waterbender. Apparently, he's inherited the same bloodbending abilities that Yakone had, and that Tarlok inherited from Yakone as well. And again, some people talked about, well, what if Aman turned out to be a bender or a bloodbender? And a lot of people were like, yeah, that's possible, but it'd be a bad idea. And they were right. It's a really, really bad idea. Why? Because if Aman is a bender and he's supposed to be about ridding the world of bending, then that reduces a character who raised so many complex ethical and political issues to a walking contradiction. And that's exactly what happened. He was a joke by the time this season finale ended. Aman was just an absolute joke. What happened? What happens if Aman turns out to be a bender? Well, then the protagonists or the main characters can just use his apparent hypocrisy to undermine his positions. To undermine his position. And that's a very, very easy way of letting Korra and Team Avatar and Tenzin and Lin Beifong, that's a very easy way of letting everybody off the hook. Very easy way. Because why? Because if they can use hypocrisy against Aman in order to undermine his political ideology and, by implication, undermine his political position, then they don't have to deal with the complexity of the political and ethical issues that he raises. They can just say, hey, everybody, Aman's a hypocrite and he's contradicting himself. That's how they want to go out? That's how the writers want this season finale to go out? With a sort of escape hatch like that? That's bad writing. That's really bad writing. Really bad writing. And here's something that people have to understand. What people really, really must understand is the distinction. And it's a very, very, very important distinction between the antagonist and the central conflict of a narrative. These two things are intimately related. They're inextricably linked, but they are not the same thing. They are very distinct, and it's important for people to realize what that distinction is. Yes, Aman was the main antagonist of this first season. He was the main antagonist, and again, he was not a villain, and this episode pretty much confirmed it, or rather, yeah, this season finale pretty much confirmed it. Aman was a Byronic hero, clearly a Byronic hero. He was not a villain, and I don't have the time to go into that and explain it in depth. But you can watch my last Art of Storytelling video, part 2 on heroes and villains, where I explain precisely what a Byronic hero is. But Aman fits almost all of the qualifications of a Byronic hero, and so Aman is the main antagonist of the show. But the fight between Korra and Aman is not the central conflict of the show. It is not the central conflict of the story. And I know a lot of you are confused. You're probably saying to yourself, what? Of course that's the central conflict of the show. Korra's the hero. Aman's the antagonist. The hero has to defeat the antagonist. Ergo, that must be the central conflict. But no, the central conflict of the show, which is something that I have been talking about since the very beginning of this season. The central conflict is not the fight between Korra and Aman. The central conflict was the ethical and political clash between Korra and Aman. That's what the central conflict of this show was. The central conflict of this show was a political conflict, an ethical conflict. It was not a conflict between two people who just want to fight each other. No, that's not what the central conflict was. And there were many allusions to this. There were many allusions to the fact that this show was supposed to be about the political conflict between benders and non-benders, specifically about the oppression of non-benders by benders. Exhibit A, from the very first episode, we see that Korra gets into it with an equalist, and I think she uses earth bending to knock over his table, and his flyers go all over the place, and the equalist even said, I bet you want to use your bending to shut me up right now. And Korra says, you're right, I do. That was very clear from that moment forward that we would be talking about a political and ethical conflict, a clash of ideologies, if you will. That was supposed to be the central focus of this narrative. And another allusion to this was the bending gangs. Remember in episode 2, I believe it was, when Bolin goes and joins the triads and the triple threat triads, and Aman is talking, has an equalist rally, and he's talking about the fact that benders are using their power to create criminal organizations and oppress people, and bending is the main source of war. The conflict was not, the central conflict of this story was not Aman versus Korra. It was the political ideology of bender oppression, of bender versus non-bender. And so it was clear that the writers had set up this show so that the central conflict would revolve around bender oppression, or rather non-bender oppression. Therefore, again, the central conflict was not Korra versus Aman. And I think this was pretty good writing. I will say that they get props for this, for at least going down this path, for having the courage to take a children's show down this path. Korra and Aman were very, very symbolic figures. They were representative of clashing ideologies. And for those of you who haven't seen my last Naruto video where I talked about this, fights never resolve conflicts in stories. It just doesn't happen that way. Why? Because fights are tools. They're devices that the author uses to explore deeper ideological conflicts in the narrative. And the deep ideological conflict in this narrative was a political conflict. The fighting, it doesn't matter if Korra beats Aman or if Aman beats Korra. It won't matter. That won't resolve the larger underlying political conflicts that this story raises. Aman and Korra could bash each other's brains out for all I care. That's not what this was supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the clash of political ideologies. And to me, the writers absolutely failed at resolving the political conflicts in this story, in this first season, in this season finale. They failed, and they failed miserably. None of the political conflicts in this story got resolved. I mean, what are we supposed to take from the last scene of the season finale, with Korra giving everybody their bending back? Oh, don't worry. Avatar Korra will make it all better. So what if there are problems between benders and non-benders? So what if sometimes there's bender oppression of non-benders? Avatar Korra will make all those boo-boos go away. You know, she'll make those boo-boos go away. There was never any real sense of addressing or attempting to resolve the political conflicts and the ethical conflicts in the show. Not at all. The ending of this season finale was so sugar coated, was so sweet. Honestly, the message from this show is, well, if you beat up the bad guy, then everything will just be great. It'll be A-OK. That's what we're supposed to take from this show? I mean, I don't even think a 10-year-old is stupid enough to believe that garbage. I mean, they might be entertained by it, but I don't think they'll really believe that nonsense. I mean, if I was 10 years old, when I was 10, I wouldn't have believed that nonsense. So, I mean, let's talk about the implications that this sort of plot device has for the characterization of Aman and Korra. And the ending of this show has for the characterization of Aman and Korra. The fact that Aman turned out to be a bender, and then Korra could use the fact that Aman was a bender to undermine him, to show that he's a hypocrite in order to, you know, sort of get rid of Aman, and as an escape hatch, so she doesn't have to deal with the real complexity of the political and ethical issues. The fact that they use that as a plot device means that the characterization of both Aman and Korra suffered greatly. They suffered immensely because of it. In terms of Korra, she gets let off the hook. She doesn't have to address any of the central conflict, which again was not Korra versus Aman. It was a political conflict. And this is something that I mentioned before. I've been saying this again and again and again. If the at the bare minimum, the protagonist is supposed to address the central conflict of the story. At bare minimum. And if they don't have Korra address the central conflict of this story, then she'd be a lame duck protagonist and the story wouldn't be that good. I said this. And what happened? Korra and Tenzin and Team Avatar and Lin Fong and everybody continue to engage in that black and white thinking. Aman equals a villain. Villain equals bad. Therefore, we have to defeat Aman. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And what makes it so bad is, and again, I said this in my last episode review, it's not the fact that she opposes Aman. I understand that there are plausible reasons why she might oppose Aman. And again, I said this. I don't disagree with Aman on ethical grounds, but I disagreed with him on political grounds. So I understood that there were perhaps plausible reasons for why Korra and Team Avatar and everybody else would want to oppose Aman. I understand that. That wasn't my problem. My problem was the fact that she never addressed the complexity of the political and ethical issues that Aman raised. And to top it all off, there was no explanation for why she opposed Aman on either ethical or political grounds. No explanation. And I pointed this out to a commenter on my videos, on my last episode review. I said, I don't ever remember a scene of introspection or extrospection, for that matter, where Korra or Tenzin or any of the protagonists in this series or main characters said, I oppose Aman because ... Never. That never happened. And this is a series that badly needed direct characterization, not indirect characterization. Indirect characterization would allow us to say, okay, we know a little bit about Korra, therefore we can make certain assumptions or certain plausible arguments or certain speculations as to why she would oppose Aman. But that's not what you need. You don't need indirect characterization in a show like this, especially in a show that's geared towards, that everybody claims is geared towards children. The most easiest way to show where a character stands is through direct characterization. Have that character come out and directly say, this is my goal, this is my objective, and these are my motives, and this is my reason for believing what I believe. What this show sorely lacked was direct characterization. We don't need indirect characterization. Indirect characterization is reserved for narratives that are like political intrigue. This wasn't political intrigue. This was a very, very direct political confrontation between two sides with opposing ideologies. Therefore, if you have a central conflict that's that direct and that straightforward, then you need direct characterization, not indirect characterization. And like I said before, in terms of Aman's character, what happens? Aman went from being this absolutely cool character who a lot of people were rooting for. Yes, I'm rooting for Aman. I agree with the Equalists. Aman is so badass. He's right. There is oppression in this world of benders against non-benders. He was reduced from a cool character very dynamic character to being reduced to a walking contradiction. And not just a walking contradiction, by the end of the season finale, he had turned into an absolute punk. And don't even get me started on what appeared to be a murder-suicide at the end with Tarlok blowing that boat up. Don't even get me started on that crap. What happens? Aman turns, tucks his tail between his legs, and runs away like a coward. Wow. Now let me talk about the second most ridiculous plot device in this episode. So there's one point in the season finale where Aman is in an arena having an equalist rally. Obviously, he wants to celebrate, but he also has ulterior motives for creating this rally. Aman has apparently captured Tenzin and his family, and he's about to take away their bending. And this was somewhat of a plot hole. And Korra comes right out and says it, but I saw Tenzin escape. How did he get captured? Yeah, good question, Korra. How did Tenzin get captured? I mean, wasn't the whole reason why Lin Beifong sacrificed her bending was so that Tenzin's family could get away? And now in the season finale, we find out that Tenzin got captured anyway? Ugh, come on. Really? And that's not even the worst of it. So Korra, after having learned from Tarlok that Amon's true identity is Noataka, who is a waterbender and a bloodbender, she barges in on the Equalist rally, and her whole plan is, well, I'll just expose Aman for the liar that he is, show that he's a hypocrite, and I'll undermine the Equalist movement that way. But Aman just lies. He takes off his mask and he shows that he has what appears to be a scar from a firebender. And remember, his whole thing was, I was the victim of a firebender who killed my family and scarred my face and all that nonsense. But we know that now that backstory was a lie. And at one point in the episode, it got really, really ridiculous. Aman falls into the water and the scar disappears. Now, I don't know if he was just such a powerful waterbender that he was able to heal the scar without even trying, or if that was just makeup, but it just looked really, really ridiculous. So anyway, Korra confronts him and a fight ensues. A fight obviously has to ensue, but it was such a disappointment. At one point in the fight, Aman takes away Korra's bending, and she drops to the floor. She can't bend at all anymore. And Aman is closing in on Mako, and he gets lightning bended, but he comes back and he's about to take out Mako. And Korra sees that he's about to take on Mako, and here comes the power of love. Could it be any more cliche than this, ladies and gentlemen? Of course, love conquers all. Just some more of that nonsense. So, Korra airbends. Airbends. Right when Aman is about to move in for the kill on Mako, after having taken her bending away, she airbends. Ridiculous plot armor. Ridiculous plot devices. So a character who has never displayed any sort of ability at all of a sudden, she's able to airbend. And not just airbend, it looks like she had quite a bit of mastery of that airbending. Korra shouldn't, first of all, the fact that she airbended right in the nick of time was bad enough. But second of all, the fact that she airbended after Aman had already taken her bending away. Now, a lot of people have claimed that, well, Aman can only take away bending if your ability for bending has already manifested itself. Whatever, I can live with that. There was never any rule set out about taking away bending or precisely what the scope of Aman's ability to take away somebody else's bending away was. So, okay, I can drop that. But still, she's able to beat Aman with nothing but airbending. Really? Aman on several occasions was shown to be a formidable fighter. So much so that he was able to dodge lightning, able to best Tenzin, an airbending master, able to take out firebending masters who could lightning bend. But Korra was able to defeat him with one element, an element that by all accounts she shouldn't even have been able to master. I mean, and not just beats him, she whoops his ass, knocks him out of a window, out of a building. And after that, what happens? Aman just, tucks his tail in between his legs and runs away. Come on now, people. I mean, I have patience, but come on, seriously. Really? Third most ridiculous plot device. With Korra and Mako end up together. Wow. Whoop-de-freaking-do. What a surprise. So, while this is all after Korra has beaten Aman, Mako comes out, oh, Korra, I love you. And then they kiss. Not really happy about this either, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, seriously. Korra is supposed to be a strong female protagonist, but she ends up with Mako. And listen, I don't care what anybody tries to tell me, Mako is a piece of trash. Yes, he's a piece of trash. Asami ran into this kid on the street with a moped, offers to take him to dinner. He says, you know what? This is a rather fancy restaurant. I don't have any clothes to go out to dinner. She buys him clothes. She gets her father to give him $30,000 so he can participate in the pro bending finals match or tournament. Allows this guy to come and live at her house. Was faithful to him, loyal to him, and then he turns around and cheats on her with Korra. Mako's a piece of trash. And a lot of people have been saying, well, Korra kissed Mako first. Okay, whatever. When you get married, if you're a guy out there and you get married, I want you to try to use that excuse with your wife and see how far it gets you. Well, honey, I mean, I did kiss her back, but she kissed me first. We'll see how far that gets you in divorce court. And then on top of it, let me just address this right now because it really irritated me when people were making this argument. A lot of people were saying, well, I mean, this is a realistic teen love and teen drama because, girls really like bad guys. First of all, that's a stereotype. And what makes it even worse is it's a sexist stereotype. There are some girls who happen to fall for bad guys, but that is in no way a generalization that people should be allowed to make. It's a sexist stereotype. So please don't even come at me with that nonsense. And now that Korra and Mako end up with each other, how is, Asami supposed to feel about this? Oh, wait a minute. I forgot something. Because it gets even worse with Mako being a piece of trash. In this episode, he continues to refuse to take responsibility for cheating on Asami. He tells her, well, I'm sorry things didn't work out for us. The fuck you mean you're sorry things didn't work out for you? It wasn't like you guys just grew apart. No, you cheated on her and she found out you cheated on her. And then when she confronted you, you tried to blame your brother. That's why things didn't work out. So he continues to not even take responsibility. The mature thing for Mako to do would have been like, listen, I knew I liked Korra more than you from the beginning. I was stringing you along. I played with your emotions. I manipulated you. I felt like once you did those favors for me, I felt like I was obligated to be with you, but I realize now I shouldn't have done that. I kissed Korra. I cheated on you. I realize now that was wrong. Perhaps you'll be able to forgive me in the future. Perhaps we can continue to be friends. But if you don't want to be my friend, if you don't forgive me, I'll understand. But as it stands now, I don't want to be with you. I want to be with Korra. That would have been the responsible thing for him to do. Instead, he comes up with some crap like, well, I'm sorry things didn't work out. Really? And now how is Asami supposed to feel about this? I mean, her ex-boyfriend is now with the girl that he cheated on her with. Boy, Asami's got more patience than I would have had. I mean, if I was a girl in that situation, Mako would have had to get a bloody nose. He would have had to get the taser glove, something. He would have had to pay. And one thing, let's not forget about this one other thing. Whatever happened to those crazy firebender killers? Oh, I didn't forget about that. Don't even think for a second I forgot about that. Mako and Bo Lin's, their family, their parents were killed by firebenders. Asami's mother was killed by firebenders. No explanation for these just rogue, random firebending killings. So, whatever with that. So now let me talk very briefly about some of the things I liked about this season finale. Yes, there were some things I liked, even though overall I thought it was basically wax sauce. I really love the aerial combat. The integration of CGI and 2D animation. I've noted this before, but it was just spectacular in these beautiful panoramic fight scenes. I just love the way they integrated the sort of developing technology with the World War II planes, and they didn't have mechas in this episode, but the World War II planes, and how they integrated the developing technology of the Avatar world into the bending fights. It was just spectacular. It really was awesome. Another thing I liked was the Hiroshi Sato versus Asami Sato subplot. Really, really loved that subplot. And to me, after the Aman and Korra thing and the Tarlock, which was a really big plot twist, this was the most compelling story to me. And I really love this subplot because it really shows that Asami was a very, very strong character. For her to have to face her father and defeat him and choose her friends over her father was just really, really compelling story to me. It sort of is a very, very interesting twist with and Otaku Symbol talked about this a little bit with the sins of the father, Yakone, Tarlock, Aman, but this was a little bit of a twist with Hiroshi Sato potentially passing down the sins not to the son but to the daughter, and the daughter rejecting those sins. So I really, really love that. My only gripe with this is that, oh, and also a very, very interesting plot twist in this episode, Hiroshi Sato actually attacked his daughter. That was very, very shocking. I mean, it lended an extra dimension of intensity to that whole conflict between Hiroshi and Asami. I really like that. My only gripe with this was that the writers didn't explore it as well as they should have. They should have added more psychological depth to this father-daughter conflict, but they didn't. Another wasted opportunity. There were no scenes of introspection where, for example, you could have Korra come in with Asami looking all down and Korra saying, don't worry, we'll work this thing out. I'll help you, reconnect with your father. No scenes of introspection with that. Another thing that I liked about this season finale was, even though I think that the backstory of Aman and Tarlock being brothers and being the children of Yakone was absolutely ridiculous, I do like the way that that backstory was able to lend a little bit of psychological complexity to Aman. Because we see now why Aman was the way he was. It was Yakone's cruelty and abuse towards both Aman Noakota, or Noataka rather, Noataka, and Tarlock that spurred Aman in this direction of being a firm advocate of both equality and fairness. And even Tarlock said that, like, Aman always had a certain predisposition towards equality and fairness, and Yakone, my father, tried to beat that out of him. And so I really like the fact that we now see that Aman really wasn't a fanatic. Rather, it was his life experience that led him to believe in his political ideology of ridding the world of bending. And I think that what happened was that for Aman at a very early age, the idea of bending and cruelty was sort of merged together in the figure of his father Yakone, and that he projected this idea of the relationship between cruelty and bending onto the rest of the world. So I think that backstory did a very good job of lending some psychological complexity to Aman's character. But other than that, the backstory was absolutely ridiculous. So to me, this season finale, from a narrative standpoint, absolute failure, absolute whack sauce. So, and I mean, as for the second season, I hope I'm. I mean, my expectations are, as low as they could possibly be for the second season now. So there's no possible way that I'll be disappointed. But hopefully they'll write something better than this wax sauce stuff they gave us in this first season. And there were some good points in this season. I'm not denying that. But this season finale, wax sauce, failure. So this was your boy, Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day. And again, thank you to everybody who participated in the blog TV and made that success.